Everybody. I hope that you are well and also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade 7 English lesson on verbs. And before we start with our lesson on verbs, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of language arts, grade 7, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of verbs. So as you can see, there's like a list of lessons right under the chapter of verbs. Today we're just going to do 2, and then in our next lesson we will continue with the rest of the lessons of verbs, right? So our chapter for today is verbs. Our subject is English language arts. Our lessons, again, that we are focusing on under the chapter of verbs is irregular past tense and simple past, present, and future tense. So that is going to be our lessons for today under the chapter of verbs. And like I say, the other lessons we are going to do in our next session, right? So now we're going on to what a verb is. All right, so most verbs, they are regular, right? So verbs are basically, before we go on to what regular and irregular verbs are, a verb is a doing word, right? It is an action. So whether we are doing the action in the present, you're doing the action in the past, meaning it happened already, or you're doing the action in the future, meaning it will happen, right? It is a doing word. That is a verb. It is a doing word, it's an action. So now we have regular verbs, right? And regular verbs, right, are your verbs that either ends in ed or it ends in d, right? And an example of a regular verb is, like, for example, if my verb is jump, right? So if my verb is jump, right? So now I jump. In the present, I jump. But in the past, I jumped, right? So we added an ed to show the past tense form of that word jump. And in the future, we again say, I will jump, right? So if we basically want to show if we want to show the regular verbs in the past, right? Like we said, jumped, that is in the past, then it means that we basically just add an ed. We just add an ed, right? And that basically shows our regular past tense. So that is a rule. You always either add an ed or you add a d to show the past tense form of that verb. But now we have irregular past tense, right? And irregular past tense it does not have any rules that it follows. We can't just say that we need to add an ed. We can't say that we add a d, because when it comes to irregular past tense, it either means that you're just going to have to know what the past tense form is of that word. So you're just going to have to remember the past tense form of that verb. That is an irregular verb, right? We can't just add an ed, we can't just add a d. And an example, right, of an irregular past tense, right, is, for example, where I say, now I do my homework. So in the present, I do my homework, right? But in the past, right, we can say that I did my homework. So can you see how the word changed from do to did compared to jump and jumped? So it's as if the wording has changed, right? With when it comes to the irregular verbs or the irregular past tense verbs. So which means that you don't follow any rules. You are just gonna have to remember what the past tense form of that verb is. And there we showed how do changes to did. For example, sit, and in the past I sat. Drink with an I, in the past I drank with an A, right? So certain wording changes, whether it is one letter of that word or sometimes the whole word changes, like do and did, right? So then we also have our simple past, present, and future tense, right? And future tense, future. When they usually ask you, what do you want to be in the future? It means that it is in a couple of years' time. It must still happen, right? That is future. So in the future tense verb, it tells you about something that is going to happen. It is going to happen. It hasn't happened yet. It's not happening now. It is going to happen. It can be tomorrow, can be next week, can be next month, next year, couple of years' time, right? But it's going to happen. And when you write the future tense, right, then we need to add the word will to form the future tense of all of our verbs. We add will. For example, right, of a future tense, it says the boys will finish later, meaning that they are not done now, but they will finish later. Tanya will speak at the conference. The conference can either be tomorrow, it can be next week, it can be next month, but she will speak at the conference. Right? So that is our future tense. And we said our future tense, the future tense verb, right? It tells you about something that is going to happen, right? It is going to happen. And we add the word will. We add the word will to form the future tense of all of our verbs. So we add the word will, and we made two examples where we made mention of how we add the word will to show the future tense. Then when it comes to the past tense verb, right? The past tense verb, it tells you something that has happened. So the past tense verb, it tells you about something that has happened already. So when it comes to regular past tense, right, then we add an ed to form the past tense of most of the verb. And if the verb already ends with an e, then we add a d, and that is for regular past tense, right? And if a verb ends with a short vowel, and then you and a singular consonant, right? Then we double the consonant before we add an ed. And then if the verb ends with a y, right? For example, like family. Then we change that y to the I to an I and we add ed, right? Or not family specifically, but let's use a different word instead of family. Because family is not a verb, sorry. So if the verb consonant ends with the y, let's say like qualify, qualify, right? Then we change this y. We change the y into a I and we add ed. So it's qualified, right? And if we look at examples, right, of what we just mentioned, if we made an example of the regular verb, a regular past tense verb, then it says, Sam changed his clothes, which means that the present tense was change, right? And now it has that word, it changed to changed. And a D was basically just added. Just a D was added. So Sam changed his clothes. We watched the game. We watched the game. So watched is our present, our past tense. So we added an ed. Watched. Ed was added to that past tense verb. And that's irregular. That's regular verbs. The audience clapped loudly. The audience clapped loudly. And there we have our verb. And we basically added another P and an ED. And then here we said if the consonant ends with a Y, we change the Y to an I and we add the ED. So Alex qualified for the finals. So Alex qualified, which is now for the finals, but in the past he qualified for the finals. And qualify is the present tense form. Right? And once again, we have regular past tense, which ends with the word ends with a D or the word ends with an ED, right? And then we have irregular past tense. And there is no rules there. We can't say that the word ends with a D, the word ends with an ED, right? You are just going to have to remember the word because there's no rules that we need to follow. You're going to have to remember the word and you're going to remember the past tense form of that verb. And that wording can change, right? And I made a few examples of drink or drank. Sit changes to sat. Do changes to did, right? And there we can see how the wording changes. We did not just add an ed or we didn't just add a d to that specific words. The word changed, whether it is one letter that changed or more than one letter that changed within that word, right? But that is an irregular verb, an irregular verb, right? It is where the wording changes and you are just going to have to remember the past tense form of that verb. Whereas with a regular verb, it's like the verb stays the same. All we do is we add an ed to that word or we add a D to that verb to show the change. That's it. That is the rule. Right? And once again, when it comes to the future tense, right? Future shows that it must still happen. It's going to happen, right? And with the future tense, all we do is we add will to all of our verbs. So we add the word will. I will go to the gym. I will do my homework. I will play with Jack. I will watch TV tonight. I will go to bed early. I will watch some TikToks. I will. That shows the future tense where we add will to all of our verbs. All right, so we are doing our tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca. So we're doing a tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca, right? So we're going to go to aplusstudents.ca now, and then we're going to continue with our tutorial lesson as well as our test. And we said our chapter is verbs, right? And the two lessons that we're going to be focusing on it's the irregular past tense and simple past, present, and future tense, right? The other lessons we are going to do on our next session, right? So next time after this class, and then we get our class again whenever, right? Then we are going to do verbs again because we're going to continue. All right, so we're going to the irregular past tense. And remember we said with irregular past tense, right? It means that there's no rules that you need to follow. You are just going to have to remember the past tense form because now the wording is going to change or a few letters are going to change, right? So most verbs are either regular in the past tense, meaning that we add a D or an ED, or they are irregular in the past tense, right? That means that you don't follow any rules. Instead, you just remember the past tense form of the verb. So if we look at our sentence that we have over here, the teams, can we say that do we say the teams fighted over the ball, or do we say the teams fought over the ball? Do we say the teams fighted over the ball, or do we say the teams fought over the ball? Which one is correct? We need to choose the correct verb, whether it is irregular verb or a regular verb. The teams fighted over the ball, or do we say the teams fought over the ball? All right, then if we choose the correct one, right, then we can say the teams fought over the ball, which means that this word fought is an irregular verb, right? It's an irregular verb because the word changed from fight in the present and the word changed to fought. And as you can see how the word has changed, right? And then it says, the barber trimmed Gabe's hair and, do we say and swept the clippings neatly into the dustbin, or do we say and swept with an ed the clippings neatly into a dustbin? We need to choose the correct regular verb or irregular verb in the past tense. So do we say the barber trimmed Gabe's hair and swept the clippings neatly into the dustbin, or the barber trimmed Gabe's hair and swept the clippings neatly into the dustbin? All right, then if we choose the correct one, then we will say that the barber trimmed Gabe's hair and swept. So we're going to use the word swept the clippings neatly into the dustbin. And the word swept is an irregular past tense verb, right? Because the word went from sweep to swept, right? So that is an irregular past tense verb. All right. It says when Anne when Anne said that the fudge, do we say the fudge cost, or do we say the fudge costed? You need to choose one of that. It says when Anne said that the fudge cost only $2 and 50 cents per block, Mr. Cohen decided to buy 10 blocks for the party. Or do we say when Anne said that the fudge costed only $2.50 per block, Mr. Cohen decided to buy 10 blocks for the party? All right, and if we choose the correct word, and then we can say when Anne said that the fudge cost, cost stays the same, cost and cost stays the same, right? And then Mr. Owen decided to buy 10 blocks for the party. So we don't say costed, it's just cost. And that is an irregular past tense form. All right. So now we're going to our test, right? Where we are going to choose the irregular past tense. All right, so we say we need to complete the sentence with the verb in the past tense. So whether it is irregular past tense or regular past tense. It says the blanket family. I'm sorry, the the blanket Pamela. Do we say that Pamela bought, or the blanket that Pamela buy should keep her warm? Is it the blanket that Pamela bought, or that Pamela buy should keep her warm? All right, and if we choose the correct one, then yes, we can say that the blanket that Pamela bought should keep her warm. So bought is correct. So well done. Bought is correct. It took determination and hard work, but Dwayne finally, do we say finally repay his debt or finally repaid his debt and started saving money for a house? So it took determination and hard work, but Dwayne finally, do we say finally repay his debt or Dwayne finally repaid his debt and started saving money for a house? All right, and if we choose the correct word, right, then we can say, but Dwayne finally repaid, because it's in the past tense, repaid his debt. And repaid is correct. So well done. Repaid is correct. So the ostrich, do we say the ostrich thrust its neck out as it turned to see what sort of creature had just entered the pen? Or the ostrich thrusts its neck out as it turned to see what sort of creature had just entered the pen? So the ostrich thrust its neck, or the ostrich thrusts its neck. All right, so we can say the ostrich. The ostrich thrusts its neck out as it turns to see what sort of creature. Ah, they only say it's thrust. Thrust sounds quite correct, but okay, it is only him thrust his neck out, right? So unfortunately, both of us, we were trying. So it's only thrust. But well done, well done. Robin was so annoyed by the absurd plot twist in the book that she, do we say that she down on the bed and refused to read anymore, or that she flung down on the bed and refused to read anymore. Fling or flung. So Robin was so annoyed by the absurd plot twist in the book that do we say that she fling the door on the bed? That she fling, that she fling down on the bed, or that she flung down on the bed? She fling down on the bed, or she flung down on the bed? Past tense. Right. So we say Robin was so annoyed by the absurd plot twist in the book that we can say that she flung, she's in the past tense, down on the bed and refused to read any more. All right. So well done. Flung is correct. And then imagine Chantal's despair when she tore the blouse she'd borrowed from her sister, especially after do we say she swore to take care of it, or she swore to take care of it? So especially after she swore to take good care of it, or she swore to take good care of it. So imagine Chantal's despair when she tore the blouse she'd borrowed from her sister, especially after and we can say she swore to take good care of it, right? Meaning she did swear. All right, and that is correct. So we can say Mr. Blake. Do we say Mr. Blake bring a variety of fruit to the picnic, including tangerines, kiwis, and assorted melons? Or do we say Mr. Blake brought a variety of fruit to the picnic, including tangerines, kiwis, and assorted melons? All right. So we can then say Mr. Blake brought a variety of fruit to the picnic, including tangerines, kiwis, and assorted melons. So he brought with, right? So well done. Brought is correct. All right. Now we're going on to the next lesson, which is simple past, present, and future tense. It's in the past, it's in the present, and in the future tense. All right, so simple past, present, and future tense, right? So we said when it comes to the future tense, verbs, it tells you about something that is going to happen, right? And if it's something that tells us that is going to happen, then we need to add the word will to form the future tense of all of the verb. All right, so future tense, we add the word will, right, to all of our verbs, so all of our sentences. For example, the boys will finish later. So will comes before the verb. And Tanya will speak at the conference. So we can say future tense. It tells us about something that is going to happen. And we made an example where we said the boys will finish later or Tanya will speak at the conference. All right. So when it comes to our future tense, then we can say that the boys will finish or Tanya will speak, right? So if we look at the next one, the activity, it says Fred's manager is vacation day as long as he requests them 4 weeks in advance. All right, so we say Fred's manager. Fred's manager, right? If you want to go on a holiday, then it means that your manager or someone needs to approve it, right? So here we can say Fred's manager will approve. Will approve his vacation days as long as he requests them 4 weeks in advance. All right. We're going to look at the next one, right? It says, In 2013, a team of researchers developed a fiber optic cable that can transfer data at the rate that the speed of light. All right, so we can say that in 2013, a team of researchers they developed a fiber optic cable that can transfer at the data at a rate that we can say approaches the speed of light, right? So it's almost up the speed of light. So we can say in 2013, a team of researchers developed a fiber optic cable that can transfer data at a rate that, so do we say a quicker rate? All right. All right. And then we also have verbs, right? And we said verbs are words that are in the past tense. We have regular verbs and we have irregular verbs, right? Is irregular verbs you do not still either follow rules with an ed or d, right? And then regular verbs is where we either follow a rule by adding d or ed, right? And we also said that when the consonant ends with a y, right? Like for qualify, then it means that we need to remove the y and include the ied, right? All right. Oopsie. So basically, if we look at, before we go, let's just do only one test, right? And we said with the future tense, right, we add the word will. In our past tense, right, with the irregular past tense, the word changes. Regular past tense, we add d or ed, right? So now we need to complete the sentence with the present tense. It's happening now, right? Do you know that the water molecule, do we say, consists of two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom? Or do we say, did you know that the water molecules consist of two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom? Which one do we choose? Do we say, did you know that the water molecules consist of two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom? So did you know that the water molecule consists of two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom? Or do we say, did you know that the water molecule consists of two oxygen atoms and one oxygen, hydrogen atom and oxygen atoms? All right, let's just choose the first one, right? Because water molecule consists, right, with an S, consists with an S, right? And then the last one, right, where we say the future tense. Remember, we said with the future tense, we add the word will. The forecast is calling for colder temperatures later this afternoon. So the precipitation, do we say turn to snow, or the precipitation will turn to snow? So it turned to snow or will turn to snow. All right, and if we choose the correct one, we will say it will, because it's the future tense. It will turn to snow. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on verbs. We said verbs are doing words, right? We have present, past, and future tense when it comes to verbs. With our past tense verb, it can either be irregular past tense or regular past tense. Regular past tense is where our verb ends with a D or an ED. Irregular past tense, it's where it's basically, it does not have a rule, so which means that the word basically just changes. Then we have future tense verb, right? And that is where the word starts with, when it comes to the future tense, we add will basically to every verb, right? And that shows the future tense. All right, so that is now the end of our lesson on verbs. Thank you very much for joining the class and for interacting. I really hope you're going to have a good evening further. So till next time, goodbye.